Hello everyone, Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal. It is Tuesday. I hope you're having a good one wherever you're watching or listening to this round world. As always, thank you very much for joining me. I really do appreciate it. We've got plenty to get stuck into today. We've got more signings to talk about. What's going on? I can't even keep up with what's going on at Arsenal at the moment. Piero Hincapie. Now, Arsenal very much interested in the Bayer Leverkusen defender. David Ornstein breaking that story yesterday. We're going to talk about that in today's show, what that could mean for Jakub Kiwior. As well, who not quite there yet, but the deal with Porto is appearing to get closer and closer to completion for him. We're going to talk about Eberechi Eze because I just want to talk about Eberechi Eze every single day of the week, all the time. And he has now joined in with his Arsenal teammates for the first time in a training session. We've got some pictures to talk about, and that's going to take us into the Liverpool game at the weekend. Will Eze start? Will he get his full debut? We will have a discussion about that as well. Amazing game last night. Liverpool winning 3-2 at Newcastle. Obviously, Pete Barclay's at Premier League action. That was got loads of questions and comments from you guys as well that I wanted to get stuck into. Myself and James Ben just sitting down a little bit later on for Inside Arsenal Extra Time. I think we're probably going to focus a little bit more on the Jakub Kiwior deal in that show. But anything you want to talk about, us to talk about in that show, any questions you may have, then please do, as always, get down into the comments, start with Extra Time, give us your question, give us your comment, and I will pull a few of those together to get them included in today's show. But we'll start with David's story yesterday. Piero Hincapie, the Bayer Leverkusen defender, Arsenal hoping potentially to get a deal done for him before the end of the transfer window. Now, this, of course, ties in with Jakub Kiwior and his potential move to Porto, which at the time of recording this show seems to have been taking a pretty significant step forward. Certainly reports coming out of Portugal this morning that I need to be chasing up later on today. Well, basically soon. I'll be chasing that up to try and get some bit of confirmation, and I'll be talking about that in Inside Arsenal Extra Time with James a little bit later on today. But reports from Portugal this morning that he could even be flying out today to complete that move to Porto. Loan with an obligation to buy. Not a great fee that is being reported at the moment, but again, until I have full sort of confirmation, I'm a bit reluctant to really give my thoughts too much on the overall package of the deal that Arsenal are going to be agreeing with Porto until I have that sort of a little bit more clear in my mind. But anyway, on Hincapie, look, he's a really exciting player. I haven't seen loads of him, I have to admit. James, who I'll be talking to on Inside Arsenal Extra Time, will have seen a lot more from him because he's been over and watched Leverkusen a fair few times for some pieces that he's done for CBS of late. So should be able to get some interesting insight from him on Hincapie. But talking to people who have seen him a lot, say he'd be a very, very exciting addition to this Arsenal squad. He can play left centre-back, can play left-back, is strong physically, will be able to deal, by all accounts, with the demands of the Premier League. It's versatile, which we know obviously is a big sort of tick in the box when it comes to Mikel Arteta. Can play left centre back, can play as the left back. When he plays as a left back, apparently he's much more of a sort of classic overlapping type left back. He likes to get down the wing, and if he's playing, say, Eze on the left wing ahead of him, who likes to cut into the central areas, that might be a bit of a bonus for Arsenal. I mean, it does beg the question. We've seen, Miles Lewis-Skelly can't get in the team at the moment at left back. Ricardo Calafiori can play left centre back and is Arsenal's left back option at the moment. So you kind of, from that point of view, you're looking at it thinking, is there really room for him here? But if it happens and we get a little bit more detail on it, we'll be able to sort of find out exactly what Mikel is thinking in terms of the squad building when it comes to Hincapie. Does he see him more as the left centre back option to compete with and cover for Gabriel, or does he see Calafiori as that long term and Hincapie coming in and being the sort of left back option with Miles Lewis-Skelly long term? So there are questions that we still need kind of answered when it comes to this potential deal if it happens, and it'll also be more. No, it will also be more money than Kiwior, and a big reason for the Kiwior deal has been to sort of try and balance the books a little bit because Arsenal have been spending so much money of late. They need to start getting some money in, and a big reason for selling Kiwior is that he's basically Arsenal's most sellable player, I would say, this transfer window. There's been plenty of interest in him, but if you're going to be bringing that money in, then immediately spending more of it, spending it all plus more to bring in a replacement, then that does very little when it comes to balancing the books. So there are a lot of questions over it. I have to say, I wasn't expecting this deal. It's not one that I'd heard of myself at all until David broke the story yesterday. I don't think many were expecting it. It is obviously legit. I've had it confirmed that this is absolutely legit, as you would fully expect from a story written by David Ornstein. So Arsenal's interest is clearly there. It would be an exciting signing, no doubt about that. It's more strength in depth. It's a real show of intent in a window where we've seen nothing but intent from Arsenal so far, and it would just really sort of add to the squad if Kiwior were to go. So let me know your thoughts on it in the comments below. If you've seen a lot more of him than I would have done, let me know your thoughts on whether he's a good player. Would you be excited by this signing? Where do you see him playing? More importantly, at Arsenal, if he were to come in, and do you think Kiwior out Hincapie would be a good piece of business by Arsenal? Well, it remains to be seen what it means for Alexander Zinchenko as well, and other players who could potentially go out in this window. There has also been a few sort of murmurings of Arsenal being in for Arnau Martinez, the Girona defender. He's more of a right back than a left back. I've heard nothing myself on that one. Unlike, like I said, I've had this backed up on the Hincapie interest. That is absolutely legit. I haven't had anything when it comes to Martinez, so I'm a bit reluctant to really go big on that. I'd be surprised as well. Right-sided defender doesn't make too much sense unless there's a real fear over Ben White's injury, which, touch wood, I hope there's not. So we'll remain. If I do hear any sort of information on Martinez, and of course I will give my own thoughts on it once I've had that one backed up. But Hincapie definitely seems to be one to watch between now and the end of the transfer window, which is only 6 days away now. Can you believe that? Only 6 days away. So we'll see what happens with him. Right, moving on to injury news. Obviously, I was speaking yesterday about Odegaard and Saka and how Arsenal and the players were pretty relieved from the results from the initial scans after the injuries they both picked up on Saturday's game. Since then, Sammy has run a story. Sammy Motbell, of course, of the BBC, has run a story on Saka saying it's about 3 to 4 weeks, which is definitely best case scenario for Arsenal. So if that is the time frame and he is back within 3 to 4 weeks, then you can understand why there has been relief around Arsenal over Saka. There was a genuine fear with him when he went off in that game against Leeds at the weekend that he could be looking at a pretty significant layoff. And if he is back within sort of 3 weeks and there's an international break in between that, you're basically looking at definitely missing Liverpool, obviously, this weekend, but we knew that anyway. But then maybe having a chance of being back for City after the international break. I mean, that would definitely be best case scenario for Arsenal. Odegaard, I'm fully expecting to be fine after the international break. I'd be surprised if he's not. He's a doubt for the Liverpool game, but he's not been ruled out of that game by all accounts yet. So it's Saka's the one that's looking at the longer layoff of the two. But 3 to 4 weeks, when he went down the way he did, when you looked on his face when he was limping off and going down the tunnel, you kind of feared like he was thinking this is potentially a bit of a bad one. But if it is only 3 to 4 weeks, then fingers crossed that'll be. Well, not even fingers crossed. That is just good news. There's no doubt about it. You can understand why there is relief around the player and Arsenal, that it's not a longer layoff from him. And also the work Arsenal have done in the transfer window this summer, it certainly protects them a lot more than potentially that they had before when Saka was injured. Madueke, obviously, you would think is going to start at the weekend in his favourite position on the right-hand side. You could play Max Dowman. I mean, why not? Considering what he's been doing at the moment, I'd be very, very surprised if Arteta does play a 15-year-old away at Anfield. It will be Madueke, obviously it will be, and then it begs the question of what do you do on the left-hand side, and if Martin Odegaard's not fit, what do you do in the centre as well? So there's lots of those sort of things to discuss. But in terms of Saka, 3 to 4 weeks, it could have been a lot worse. It definitely could have been a lot worse. So we definitely have to look at it as good news. Right, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see some pictures there. Arsenal have released today of Eberechi Eze in his first training session, which he had yesterday with the squad at Arsenal. Look at that smile. Look at that smile. How happy he is. It just warms the heart on this Tuesday morning looking at pictures like this. He's you would think, going to have a significant impact on the game this weekend at Liverpool, Eze, whether he plays on the left, whether he potentially fills in for Martin Odegaard in one of the central roles. Maybe Declan Rice can switch to the right side and you have Eze as the left 8. Alongside Martinelli on Trossard on the left-hand side, potentially play Ranieri in the Odegaard role, keep Declan Rice where he is, and maybe play Eze on the left-hand side of the attack. Definitely lots of options there, but just to see him now in a training shirt, with his new teammates. There's plenty of other pictures that Arsenal put out, plenty of Eze content to absorb and soak up if that's what you want to do today. Get over to the Arsenal social channels and you'll find more pictures. But just look at that face. Look how happy he is. Look how happy he is to be wearing the Arsenal shirt. It looks like one of us would be if we were training with Arsenal, didn't it? So brilliant to see. Can't wait to see him in action this weekend when Arsenal go to Liverpool, who, like Arsenal, have won their first 2 games of the Premier League season. They just about got away with it yesterday against 10-man Newcastle. Did not play well, Liverpool. Let's face it, they did not play well, but they got the result. At the end of the season, it doesn't matter. They're not going to look back on that and think, oh, we didn't play well at Newcastle. It doesn't count. Of course it counts. They got 3 points. That's all that matters. Arsenal didn't play well at Manchester United, but it was a fantastic result. Liverpool didn't play well against Newcastle, against 10 men, but they won. Any result at St James's Park is a fantastic result, and they did it. And they did it in the fashion of champions, just like they did against Bournemouth on the opening weekend. They left it late. A substitute comes off the bench and gets them the win. 16 years old, imagine that. Last minute, 110th minute, 16 years old, Premier League debut, and he scored a winner at St James's Park. Unbelievable scenes, and it was a brilliant result. Classic Premier League action. That means that Arsenal versus Liverpool this weekend, or Liverpool versus Arsenal, 2 of the only 3 teams in the Premier League who've got 100% record. It's just set up to be an absolute blockbuster at Anfield, isn't it? It'll be interesting to see what Liverpool do. I mean, you look at how Liverpool played yesterday, and they did play badly. There's no doubt about that. Again, they conceded 2 goals. Again, they threw away a 2-goal lead to be pegged at to 2-2 before going on and winning it. So there's signs there. You know, if you're Arsenal and you're preparing for this game at Anfield, you've got to be looking at it. You've got to be looking at the gaps they're leaving down the flanks and how isolated the centre-backs are at times, and think, we can get at this Liverpool team. You know, it's going to be difficult. Of course it is. Arsenal have got a terrible record. 2012, the last time they won in the league at Anfield. But the signs are this season that you can get at this Liverpool team. They are not solid. They are not solid. And you can get at them. And when you've got to look at the attack, even if Arsenal without Odegaard and Saka at the weekend, which they might potentially be, definitely Saka, we'll wait and see on Odegaard. This attack, the options Arsenal have in attack, they can hurt this Liverpool team. Gabriel Martinelli loves playing against Liverpool, loves scoring against Liverpool. Eze, whether he plays in the centre, whether he plays on the left, can do it against any sort of player. Madueke will cause Liverpool problems down that right-hand side. I'm absolutely convinced of it. So there is, Gyökeres getting down the channel against sort of isolating the fullback and running into the central areas against a Konate who has looked pretty poor so far this season as well. Arsenal can hurt Liverpool. There's no doubt about that. What we've seen from them in this game against Newcastle, what we saw against Bournemouth, they are not invincible, far from it. And Arsenal have got to go there and really believe in themselves this weekend. Moving on to some questions and comments now. It's sort of in regard with the game against Liverpool this weekend as well. The first couple of them anyway. Jason has got in touch on the Discord and says, maybe it's a bit of the prodigal son returning, an emotional state that I'm in. But assuming Odegaard is out, do you think there's any chance that Arteta starts Eze as a 10 at Anfield with Rice and Zubi in a double pivot behind him, with Martinelli and Madueke racing down the wings against their less defensive-minded fullbacks, and Eze with the creative freedom to float around in the middle of the park? It feels like we could make a real statement win in their house and lay down a marker for the season. Do I think there's a chance of that? What's a proper 4-2-3-1 you're talking about? Is there a chance? Well, look, we've seen Rice and Zubimendi play much more as a double pivot than we've been expecting so far. Certainly the games in pre-season that we saw. I still think it will probably be more of the classic 4-3-3 that we've come to expect. I'm still not convinced that he won't play it safe and play Marino. I've still got Mikel Arteta stuck in my mind, and I keep falling back on what he has tended to do and how sometimes he plays things safe. You could play Ethan. Absolutely, you could play Ethan. You could play Eze in a central area, like you say, and then have Odegaard or Trossard or Martinelli out on the wing. But there is that Marino option. There is that safer option of playing someone like Mikel Marino, which past experience suggests that's what Mikel Arteta might do. I hope he doesn't. I would love him to do what you said here, Jason. Give Eze some freedom. Play Rice and Zubimendi closer together a little bit deeper, and then just let the 4 attackers do what they want. I think it's really interesting. I think we're really going to debate it. I think the next question is on this as well, and myself and James will talk about it today. We've got the Arsenal Press Pass show coming up a little bit later on the week, where I know we're going to talk about it a lot more. For Inside Arsenal Discord members, James Nicholas Gunner Blog is joining myself and Si for that one as well. And if you haven't signed up for it to become an Inside Arsenal Patreon member yet, and you want to do that and get access to the Press Pass show and other exclusive shows that you can do, down below. The link is in the description. So there's lots to talk about. Let me know your thoughts. In answer to Jason's question, what would you do ahead of Liverpool? How would you set the team up if Odegaard is missing like we expect he probably will be? Vet Paris says, hi Charles, trip to Anfield. The most important qualities we need is A, win your duels centrally, and B, have enough pace to attack the space behind their fullbacks. My lineup would be Raya, Timber, Saliba, Gabriel, Calafiori, Rice, Zubamendi, and then Marino or Eze, then Madueke, Gyökeres, and then Martinelli or Eze. Vet Para continues and says, I think the left winger will need to provide some cover for Calafiori against Salah. Also, if White were to be fit, this is the one game of the season where I wouldn't mind Timber at left back to play against Salah. Yeah, we've seen Mikel Arteta do that before when Tomiyasu was fit and available. He played Tomiyasu over there and did very, very well against Mo Salah, and you would absolutely back during Timber to be able to do that as well. Salah was very, very quiet yesterday against Newcastle, but he did pop up with the assist late on, obviously. And I think you're right when you talk about the left winger and the need to provide cover for Calafiori against Salah. I think that will certainly come into Mikel Arteta's thinking. That third generation gunner has got in touch on the Patreon message board and says, hi, Charles, long-time reader, viewer and fan. Thank you very much. Jesus, if he's back in November and assuming no further injuries, where would he start? Well, I don't think he would start, but I just think he'd be another really valuable squad option for Arsenal to have. When he's fit and available, when he's playing well, as we saw before the injury, Jesus can still make a really big impact on this team and can win games for Arsenal. He can play on the right wing, he can play on the left wing, he can play as the striker. And when you've got games coming thick and fast, and you've got all three, you've got Champions League, you're still in the Carabao Cup, you've got FA Cup starting in January, and you've got the Christmas period of Premier League games coming, every other few days, then you just want your strongest possible squad. So do I think he'll start many games, Jesus, when he's back fit and available? No, but I think he'll provide really good cover and could start some games, and he can play anywhere across the front line, which is what's such a boost about him potentially coming back if he can get fit. George Fraser has got in touch and says, thanks for the content, Charles. No problem. After all the talk of Arsenal's need for a striker, seeing the reaction to Eze, it's ended up feeling like a bigger signing than Gyökeres. Weirdly, I think this could be a good thing and maybe take some of the hyper media and fan focus off him. Similarly, with the Dalman excitement, I feel people have forgotten how ridiculously young and good Ranieri is. I think both Gyökeres and Ethan come out of the limelight slightly, which could be a really good thing. What are your thoughts? Yeah, I mean, it absolutely could be. I don't think Gyökeres would be too bothered about the limelight, though, I have to say. I just feel I haven't got to know Victor Gyökeres yet. I've not spoken to him. I've not interviewed him yet. But from speaking to people who have dealt with him, the impression that I got was he would not care about the pressure and the scrutiny of being Arsenal striker. He would quite welcome that. I think the celebration when he was touching his hair after the game, after the second goal at the weekend, it showed he wasn't hiding away from some of the criticism he'd been getting after the Manchester United game. In fact, he wanted to poke fun at it. So, but it could be a good thing. Certainly with Ethan, as he's such a young kid as well, taking the limelight, have another young wonder kid. So all the focus isn't just on you. So it could be a good thing. I couldn't say for certain that it will be, but it absolutely could be. I understand your point on it, George. So thanks very much for getting in touch on that. We've got one from Richard now to close this one off. And I just wanted to show, this isn't a question really or anything like that, but I just thought it was a really nice comment that I thought was a really good way to end the show. Richard says, I'm 58. I didn't attend the game on Saturday. However, the reaction to Eze was why I love Arsenal. It was a moment to understand what it means to so many people. We are a club rich in history. While the Emirates is not Highbury, you can feel the connection and confidence within the club and the fans. And obviously laughing at that lot is always welcome. We are stronger together. Our club is still special and always will be. Great work, Charles. Thank you. Come on, you Gunners. I just thought that was a really, really nice comment from Richard. And he was right. It was such a heartwarming moment, the Eze unveiling, and the noise and the love and the outpouring of emotion on his face, the interview with Ian Wright, all around it. I just think it's been one of those signings that has just touched everyone and has excited everyone. And it's just kind of reminded us that football is not just such a sterile, boring, not boring, but you know what I mean. It's just not all about money and everything like that. There is still more to it. It is still about just that dream you had as a kid of wanting to play for the team that you supported. And I think the whole Eze signing has just kind of reminded us a little bit of that. I can't wait. Can you imagine the first goal? Imagine his first goal. What that's going to mean to him. Going to be very, very special. Hopefully comes in the last minute at Anfield on Sunday to win the game for Arsenal. That's it from me, everyone, today. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Actually, it's not that. That's not it from me today. I will be back with Inside Arsenal Extra Time with James Bench a little bit later on today. Until then, have a good one, everyone. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.